All right, we are now getting into the final talk. All right, the final talk, but there is an artistic performance after the final talk, so you cannot leave after the final talk. That being said, I will be bringing back somebody who probably just woke up because we were with him several hours earlier when it was quite late in California. Patrick. Such a good faker.
No, it's not. It's all right. I'm okay. Everything's good.
Okay, everything's good. When did you wake up, Patrick?
About an hour ago.
Okay, good. Well, a lot of things have happened since you went to sleep.
Well, I couldn't get to sleep because my social media was so lit up, and it was great. So I just gave up. I mean, usually I travel for these things, and this kind of made me sad a little bit because this community is so cool, and I mean, immediately I started getting pings on social media, people saying, "Oh, I want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this." I do miss the in person. I'm just going to say it because that would have been like the after the talk out in the hallway talk.
Oh, and those are the best. Those are the best. Yeah.
No, I miss the hallway track so much, but we can't let things slow, the world situation as it is, it's not going to slow us down. We still have things to do. It'll make us change we've done a pretty good job here. Bart, you've done all of what I would think is important for building a community without ever having an in-person event. And
that's true. Yeah. So I think that's kind of our next challenge is that we got to figure out a way to get an in-person event. But I think I'm optimistic that for KubeCon North America in October, there will be an in-person element for the Data on Kubernetes community. So yeah, I think we are getting ready to get our next guest in here.
I'm going to stall for time while Evan shows up.
That's
I can't do this solo.
No, but like I said, we've had an action-packed day. We've had, I was just counting actually. Since you went to sleep, Patrick, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 talks, more than 20 speakers because we had a couple talks with 2 speakers. Wow. So yeah. So anyway, no, I think I need to bump up. I think I might need to bump up.
He needs to be a co-presenter.
Oh, here we go. There we go. All right. So yeah.
Well, it's this building of community that I think is so important. And look, the entire company of Maya Data is here.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
An army of one.
The numbers would be higher. But
I think. Well, no, and speaking of numbers, we've actually been looking at our YouTube playbacks, and we've had over 5,000 playbacks. So anyway, things are going quite well in terms of that. Great turnout, friend. Lots of wonderful questions. Got people jumping in Slack. It's really encouraging to see that speakers from over 8 different countries coming together, and yet we still have this common thread of the problems that are trying to be tackled and the issues that are trying to be resolved. So anyway, that being said, I will let the 2 of you tango. I'm going to get a glass of water.
Awesome.
Thanks to Tango out here.
Yeah. So thanks for opening this up and for all you do. I think one of the themes is thank you for Bart and thank you for the community, and the way this has kind of coalesced and taken off has been inspirational, I would say. So and thank you, Patrick, for the ODARC, whatever it was, 1 a.m.
1 a.m. kickoff. Yeah, it was good though. You missed it. Now it's on playback. You could be one of the 5,000 that watch it.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And I'm still not fully awake, and here we are. But look what we thought. So we did put some slides together, Patrick and I, for the folks on now. But really, it's a way of broadening the conversation. I think it's fair to say, Patrick. And we want. Mm-hmm. Engagement, not just in terms of the important stuff of the talks and the ambassadors, and we're touch on that here, but we also want to be really open about okay, who are these people? Where does this come from, and where might it be headed? And we're really looking for direction, coaching, involvement when it comes to governance as well. So if there's one takeaway, it's that. It's your community, it's our community, it's your community. So really looking forward to broader conversations. Just by way of history, Patrick also kicked off the first meetup, as many of you already know. The idea always has been to have a safe space, if you will, and to grow the commons. That's the Boston Commons there. So, but anyway, to grow the commons, right? And let's talk about it, not so much about storage, although, OpenEBS and Maya Data were certainly kind of storage geeks. It's more about what are you trying to do? What you're trying to do, like, why are you running data on Kubernetes, and how is that happening? And having a safe space there. And so, yeah.
That was the kickoff, right? Is that Evan, you and I knew of large organizations doing this daily, but no one was talking about it.
Right. Exactly. So what has happened? This is, I think we put it to Bart as we need a brag slide. So this is the brag slide. So the short of it is gotten tremendous engagement and participation, and it's just blowing up in a positive sense. I think 5x plus growth in terms of Slack participation in the last 5 months and so forth. And today's activities just speak to this. So what's up with the CNCF? So what I would say there is super supportive. Speaking of coaching and input, we've gotten some really good coaching and input from folks like Chris at the CNCF, which is great, right? They're arguably the most successful open source project or at least foundation and organization ever. And of course, the Linux Foundation being kind of the overall org there as well. We've gotten a lot of coaching there. There's a community integration has occurred, which basically means this day can happen, right? Which is great. Bart also is a CNCF ambassador, and we're talking to the CNCF about other ways to collaborate. And I don't know, Patrick, if you were to say more about that. We have some good ideas, but we also want to get other people, I think, involved as board members or before we do anything too set in stone, is the way I would maybe put it.
Well, it's expanding that tent. I think this is how good communities go. There's that initial burst of energy, but and as you know, I've been involved with the ASF for quite a long time. I'm also on the TOC for CNCF. I mean, I've seen how this happens, and the best thing that happens in these cases is that there's a strong diversity in everyone that comes to the table, and then opening up that aperture so that it's not just a few different people saying the same thing over and over again, because it's a community of users. And it's just like open source. If you're uncomfortable with that, then you're probably in the wrong place.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So help us. I guess this is supposed. Yeah, May the 4th, baby. I guess this is supposed to,
it's close.
This kind of looks like you, except they would be the giant horn. But in any case, how can you help? You're already doing it, and so spreading the word about talks. Ask hard questions either during the talk or on Slack. Bring to the surface some of the questions that may not be asked but ought to be asked. Become a DoKC ambassador. We're seeing that. I know this is all under Bart's leadership, so it would be he would have the info about that and be much better able to speak to it. We're just myself, one of the people who helped come up with the idea and help pay the bills, but the community itself is independent. There's much more information available. There are folks who want to be sponsors, and there's some potential benefits there. But we don't want to, I think, as an organization, community, put that ahead of what's most important, which is making sure we have a community that can grow, and a structure and number of breadth of organizations and individuals that can help organize it. So we do think the CNCF, we can learn a lot from there. We can learn a lot from Patrick and others' experience with the ASF and so forth. But we're very, very open to additional participation. And we just put this in here because, I mean, this is the kind of stuff for me, it's just exciting. I can't tell you how often this comes up, like this particular one, Airflow versus Argo. But, and now these days when, like I was just speaking with a bank, that's why I was slightly late, and they were talking about their ML and pipelines and so forth. I'm like, well, have you heard about the data on Kubernetes community? Don't ask me, go to the community, like, contribute, listen, learn from each other. That's where some of these conversations are happening. But we did put Bart's email here and a little bit on learn more here. There are, there is a statement of principles. There is, of course, a code of conduct. There are some of the very foundational things in place. That said, we think we need effectively like a founding board, if you will, to talk about, again, community always independent, but governance, like what is the structure we want for this from a legal standpoint, from an oversight standpoint, from the perspective of, sponsorship, where does that money go if there are sponsors?
This is the call to action right here.
Yeah.
So if you work for a company that wants to sponsor a certain level, if you're interested in the governance portion of building out a community like this that's truly independent, this is the time we're pulling everybody in. The Bart's horn. You're hearing this right now, and I think this is. Evan, how long, I don't know how long we've been talking about this, but this is just such a great time because this community has gotten a lot of really good momentum. I mean, the fact that CNCF has given DoK an entire day and that there's been almost 3,000 participants in that just shows you that this is a community that wants to happen, which is pretty exciting because I believe it, you believe it, and it's good to, like, whenever you show up at the party and realize, oh, it really is something, and more people see that. But don't just be a participant on the sidelines. It's really, this is what makes things happen in a big way and makes it really useful for a lot of people. So get involved, and if you have just a passing interest, you're not sure what to do, email Bart. We're collecting all this stuff. We'll get back to you and find out more about what you can do. But this is the time to speak up, and we're forming up here.
Yeah. And that's our talk on governance. Can we see questions? Are there questions or comments?
I'm watching the YouTube channel.
Okay.
But I suspect this is a late day crowd. And if you do have any questions, go ahead and answer.
I do have a question though.
Bart has a question, yes, in the back.
Yeah. No, because considering, this got, the initial conversations for this were, last year in around May, June, I imagine, right?
Right.
And based on, the initial conversations, obviously I wasn't there for them, and shout out to Demetrius who was there in the initial phases, but considering where things were at then, in terms of the landscape, in terms of the conversations that were happening, did it seem that there was a lot of doubts that were going against the possibility of this really moving forward?
Where this is the community, or this is the pattern of using data on Kubernetes?
Data on Kubernetes, the pattern, and then by extension, the community, based on, that there would be enough conversations and momentum to push it forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think there definitely was skepticism, and there still is, right? Actually, this bank I was just chatting with, who's anyway, they were just saying, there's still this push to just use the fiber channel attached. No, sorry, not to geek out on storage, but to basically, to stop using Kubernetes as a data layer and to put real workloads outside of Kubernetes on some other older system. Now, on the flip side, we see just massive adoption, right? So I think both things are happening, but I think this community is playing a really important role in communities, the broader CNCF as well, and just sharing like what's happening, because there are outcomes occurring. I mean, Flipkart, I think, mentioned, I wasn't up for that talk, although I had a preview, I had a sense, but 20% of workloads of one of the largest e-commerce companies in the world is stateful workloads now running on Kubernetes, and they're going to 100%. So it's really happening. There was skepticism. There still is. I don't know, Patrick.
Well, I mean, I don't think we would have put any mental energy into it if we didn't think it was a thing. I don't know if we had any designs on how fast it would be adopted. Actually, I was pretty skeptical that it would go fast because the pushback. But from my world, and working at DataStax, our company is, we run a significant part of our business on Kubernetes, data on Kubernetes. Like the Astra, this Cassandra as a service, Astra runs in Kubernetes. So we better show up with this is a thing, because as a part of this, if we didn't believe that, we would have not a company. But I mean, I think it's one of those things that it's time. I did spend a lot of time in the past, 5 years, thinking about like how Kubernetes and data work. And it was clear 5 years ago, 4 years ago, that it just wasn't ready. But if you look at all the activity that's happened since then, these aren't things that are happening because we just want to keep revving Kubernetes. It's clear that there's energy being put into Kubernetes that is around stateful workloads. And I think it's like stateful sets, daemon sets, all the different, what's happening with OpenEBS. I mean, there's a lot of things have happened that have been the enabling factors. So when you see all that kind of like the open source project energy happening, it's not a big surprise. I mean, this is, my in summation, it's not a surprise that a community would form around this. And I think it's because, like I said earlier, there needs to be a watering hole for folks that are being told. I hear this more often than I don't, like that, you never put a database in a container or in Kubernetes. I mean, just give it some bare metal, let it run. But that is changing. And whenever you have something like that that's rapidly changing, there needs to be, and I think, Evan, you use this word really well, a safe place. Like, where can I go to exchange information and share? And like I keep pointing out, I think, just the fact that so many people participated today, and it just shows you, this isn't just a little niche part of Kubernetes. It's going to be the dominant part of Kubernetes in the next 10 years.
Just one quick point. For us, we were fortunate to have Stephen Bauer and the Bloomberg team, right? So the future's already here. It's a cliche. It's just unevenly distributed. So you can Google KubeCon. Fall, I think 2 years ago. Them basically saying, "Hey, we've already written flavors of Kubernetes multiple times, right? Like we have things with control loops running Solar or running, some Cassandra or running why not standardize on Kubernetes?" And so, the community and users like that sort of grokked, like, we already have some code that we're maintaining to run these bigger workloads or other workloads. Why not, to some extent, standardize on those, now add operators, et cetera, to make it all happen? So you could see it coming if you listen to the right people.
It is a thing. And I think I've shared this with you, Evan and Bart, but I'm Jeff Carpenter and I are currently in contract negotiations with a major publisher to work on a data on Kubernetes book, because I think it's time. So I'd also like to hear from you if you're interested in participating. It will be a community style book. It won't be just Jeff and I telling you what we think. But these are all the things we're putting energy into this growing this and what it should be. So
that said, we'd be remiss if we didn't say thank you again to Bart. I mean, it's incredible.
Bart,
the creativity and the energy and the sheer hustle of you and the team and of the ambassadors in the team. I mean, it's incredible. It really is. Yeah. And, this is the kind of stuff that I'm just, personally, and I know as the company, et cetera, and so forth, we're just, it's awesome to somehow be involved in it. So, but right place, right time, but right people doing incredible work as well.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, for me, I have to say that it's been a challenge because of entering a space that is what it is, and but it's also been very reassuring in going just back to the numbers, like the amount of meetups that we've been able to put together, and now extending them out into different languages and getting folks from different levels and different use cases to come in. It's been really reassuring because it's you don't just feel like the crazy prophets out in the desert shouting at people, but that other people are coming forth and say, oh yeah, I've thought about this before, that this is something that we are exploring more, and to see different startups and then also enterprise side. Just want to touch though really quickly, we got a question saying, what do you think the barrier to entry is for people that are new to Kubernetes? Is it that huge workloads aren't just open source and readily available? To see the true power of Kubernetes, it has to be something bigger than a development environment.
Yes, you're right. I mean, I touched on this earlier in my talk, but Kubernetes, and I've been giving this talk, I just gave it at Open Source 101, that I feel that Kubernetes is going to be what takes open source back from the clouds. So Kubernetes is this deployment of virtual data centers, and there's all this fear and uncertainty around open source getting strip mined by clouds. Well, clouds only really sell us three things: compute, network, and storage at some point, and they're going to get commoditized. I'm pretty sure of that. And that's what I think Kubernetes is going to be. This is why I think DBAs getting involved with Kubernetes is such an important thing, because we need everybody. And it will change the dynamics. It's going to reset the economics of cloud.
Yeah, it's an excellent question and answered question. Yeah, I would just say the care and feeding. Yeah, so there are. I saw this pattern many years ago. In the shift of voice and video onto IP. That shift didn't mean that the old functions that needed to be done on the older systems went away. Similarly, data shifting onto Kubernetes doesn't mean, and enabling the developers to manage it themselves effectively, doesn't mean that there's no capacity management needed. You still need capacity management. You still need care and feeding some of these human workflows, and a lot of which are being, built as we speak, right? To if you treat the whole thing as a system, developers, data scientists have freedom, platform teams have visibility and in control and the responsibility to optimize. Those patterns are being worked out, but it's a good question.
And I think precisely, talking about barriers, that is something that's come up, and we're very aware of that as a community as well too. And these are, as you said, Patrick, whether it's a book or creating, video tutorials or documentation or things like that, we want it to be, like I said, that we really want to be as welcoming and inclusive as possible. So it doesn't matter if someone's a university student is 20 years old, they can also still, engage and learn and have their questions answered and get support from some of the folks that have more experience. So I think that's been clear. Sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
Oh, well, you mentioned like the young like student. One of the things I've noticed in open source that is sorely missing a lot of times is the newcomer asking questions. Because I guarantee you that the questions you ask, the people who don't know the answer are being super quiet. And that's a really important part of participation, is asking questions, not just answering them, asking questions. So yes, please. Newcomers, ask questions.
and I think it's something that I'm okay with it, that we have to insist on. But something that I've learned as well too from interacting with the CNCF is insist on being welcoming. Being over. I don't know if you want to say overly welcoming, but making it very, very clear that no one's going to get shut down, or called out in a bad way if they're obviously asking quite a beginner question, when it should be the opposite of creating a space.
Well, we have a code of conduct for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Is that we're making it very, very clear in terms of policy and also in terms of practice, that I am completely very, very encouraged about doing outreach. That's also why we had to talk with the last mile. We would love to collaborate with folks that are incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, that are trying to get into a tech space and maybe don't have a university degree, but that are very excited and really embrace the concept of a beginner's mind. But like you said, Patrick, is that in the same way, it shouldn't just be the newcomers, but also, folks that have been working on databases for decades, that they can be asking questions too.
Everybody.
Yeah. And so that's it. But I think, this is something that we're building. And I think most of the people that perceive it as well see that our community is different from other communities because of some of the characteristics of our identity and how we do things. And that we want it to be a space also, which is why, since the beginning of being very emphatic about incorporating artistic elements, because it's another way to have conversations and make these concepts more tangible and accessible. Which is why today launching our coloring book is something I've been very, very excited about, because it's also, it's the thing is that that way practitioners, when they're with, their family members or children or things like that, can have another way of explaining the things that they're doing. So that's something that I think that has gone quite well. And the feedback has been very good too. Good. Well, I'm looking, the thing is, while we're talking, we're getting different conversations going in YouTube and also on our Slack. We have some heavy hitter veterans like Rick Vasquez and Alvaro going all out in our database channel. Let's see. Is there anything else that we should mention before getting to the final part?
Wrap it up, man.
What a day. Okay, good. Well, we still have a couple more things, but
yes, you do, and I can't wait to see it. And more horn.
Yeah.
Because we could use more horn.
More cowboy, more horn. Yeah, this was a very serious goat. That was the owner, the original owner of that horn. Basque Mountain goats are pretty intense. If I can get Nellie back in here. Nellie, I think you are in here, but if you can share your screen, because while we've been talking the whole time. Hi, Nellie. Anyway, Nellie's in Michigan. And Nellie, can you show us what you've been working on today since you got started at 4:00 in the morning?
Yeah. Do you want a picture of me? You want me to try and turn this camera around?
Yeah, try to turn the camera around if you can.
Okay. I didn't take that. I didn't know how to take the blur filter off without turning myself on. So
all good. Let's see.
See if is it still blurry?
Yeah, it is kind of blurry. No, it's kind of unsplotchy. Anyway. If you can't, well, you can just kind of explain what it is, and then it's up to artistic interpretation.
Okay. We talked about this, Friday? Decided we were going to do this.
and that is a long time for planning the data incorporation.
So I wanted to do something during the whole event to kind of represent the whole event. And I said, I could do a painting. And so it was agreed upon that, maybe I'd go with a map, because the map, then we're getting the whole world in there, right? I've got all the different countries on there, and I can show that we're a global community. We really are. So that was the whole idea behind it. And so I painted on that all day. I did post pictures of it. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
It's got a good picture of it. So yeah, that's what the whole purpose. I wanted something to represent the fact that this is, because I have to tell my friends and stuff all the time, the people I know here in rural Michigan, that I know people globally, is that, this tech is everywhere. It's not just the United States, it's everywhere. So I love the fact that I could do something that shows the global impact of this whole event today.
Good. I think that's perfect. And that's exactly what it is. And that's what we were mentioning earlier, is that we've had folks from 8 different countries, or probably even more, talking today. And that's one of the beautiful things as well, that despite all the difficulties of the pandemic, is that it's really bringing us close together with folks from tons of different countries. And that's also what we've been trying to do with the community by having meetups that are available in different languages. And we have every intention of continuing with that, because also, once again, talking about barriers, we don't want anyone to think that they can't be in our community because of a language factor. So that's something like I said, that very much is an important characteristic of our identity. So like I said, I think it's a perfect example. This painting we're going to hang on to because we're going to be developing more stuff in the artistic side. And as soon as we can start doing physical events, there will be more presence of art from Nellie, from Angel. Angel, can you actually come here so we can see you on camera? The thing is actually, yeah, get in here. Yeah. This and Gorka, you as well. Just do a widescreen. Is that for anybody who thinks that this is somehow a solo operation, you're very much mistaken. I would be completely dead in the water if it weren't for the help. Yeah. You're on all the cameras. So this is Angel, who's been doing the graphic recording throughout all of our meetups. This is Gorka, our wonderful telecommunications engineer, who also set up our Raspberry Pi cluster that we're using to give out prizes. We also have Nellie, who's our visual learning coordinator. We have Iker Arce, who's been getting all of our videos uploaded to YouTube super fast and is also helping out with all the promos that we do. We have Courtney Nickerson, who's working right now, who helps us out with all of our mailings. And some of the content that we're putting out in social media. You've got to understand, there are more than a few folks that are involved. We've also got some great people from DataStax and MyData that have been helping out. So huge shout out to all the Data on Kubernetes family. And that being said, we are now at the very final part. So I just ask you to stay for 5 more minutes because this is going to be awesome. Gorka, can you go back because we need to start getting sorry. And you do. All right, we'll see you in a bit. Like I said, we have an amazing team that makes this happen. And this is absolutely going to continue to be a collective effort. We've got some messages from folks today saying that they would like to get involved. If you want to get involved, just get in Slack and send me a message. We will find a way for you to help out. There are tons of different things that we're going to be needing in the immediate future. But like I said, one of the things that's characterized us since the beginning in terms of getting our own identity is this commitment to thinking and acting globally, to striving for diversity and inclusion. As I said in the interview with Andrea Henkel from Last Mile, we can do a better job and we're going to do a better job. But one of the other things that's been characteristic as well that you've all seen are the rap videos that we produce. But we've also had other musicians come on here in this space, all right, in the city where I live called Baracaldo in the north of Spain, in the Basque Country. This is a cultural space, which is why the horn actually originally came from here. I didn't have this at home. This actually is a musical instrument. But like I said, music is a big part of our community as well, because music is also a global language as well as art. All right. So right now we're going to invite